Welcome back to the remaining sessions in the auditorium. I hope you enjoyed your lunch break and enjoyed the paper sessions that were just outside the auditorium. Now we can go back to more sessions into artificial intelligence and hear from two of the brilliant minds joining us today to discuss the future of AI and its real-world applications. To begin with, we're going to have introducing Professor Aaron French from Kennesaw State University. He will be discussing about the evolution of artificial intelligence from a tactical tool to a strategic asset. Later, it will be followed by a presentation from Professor Anthony Vance from Virginia Tech, where he will tackle on a challenging aspect in cybersecurity from a neuroscientific perspective. Please be aware that there will be a single Q&A session after both presenters finish their presentation. And for now, help me in welcoming Professor French to give up his presentation.
All right. I'm very excited to be here today, and I appreciate all of you who are here in the room. Thank you for the organizers of the conference for inviting me here. So today I'm going to talk about strategic AI. So a lot of the research I've done for the past 5 years is focused on the augmented intelligence perspective. How do we enhance individual productivity? And now my research is starting to change from more of the strategic view. So one thing I'll start off with is this question here. Some of you may remember this by Nicholas Carr in 2008, posed the question, is Google making us stupid? So it's interesting because it's from this long debate of every time we have new technology, what is the adverse consequences on humans? And so in this perspective, one of the things they talked about was you don't have to learn or remember anymore. You can just use Google. You can search for information, whatever you need. And so in one instance, it is making people dumber. But at the same time, whenever we think about Google, you're actually searching, getting information, you have to process it, you have to think and do something with it. And so I think a better question is not about Google. We look at ChatGPT today and ask this exact same question. Is ChatGPT making us stupid? Because it can perform a lot of the cognitive tasks that humans might do these days. And so that's where my research comes in. You know, it's really not the technology that's making us stupid, it's how we use the technology. And so I've applied the Dunning-Kruger effect to kind of explain this from a different perspective. And so a Dunning-Kruger effect is a psychological theory that people tend to overstate their confidence in their ability to perform tasks or what they know. And so if we look at this model from a generative AI perspective, there's going to be a lot of people that are using generative AI to perform tasks they were never previously able to do. And so we have somewhat of an enhancement, but also we're doing things, we're replacing our current task with ChatGPT as well. And so I make the argument that when you're replacing your knowledge generation, you're falling on this peak of Mount Stupid. You know, to where you're not producing work, you're letting the system produce the work on your behalf. And so when we use it from an augmentative intelligence perspective instead of a replacement, you know, AI, we get to this valley of despair, and then we start having this, you know, new capabilities, this path of enlightenment that we might go through using it. So that's where I try to do a lot of my work when I talk to businesses and individuals, is how not to replace yourself or replace what you do with generative AI, but how do you use it to do more than you're able to do otherwise. And the most simple example I always give is a calculator. You know, the calculator, is it going to make us stupid or not? A lot of people make the arguments that people are not going to know math anymore. And for a large percentage of the population, that was true. There's a lot of people that can't perform simple addition of 2 or 3 digits without a calculator. And that's fine. Everybody doesn't need math. But there are others that use the calculators to perform mathematical calculations they were not previously able to perform without the tool. And so that's what these tools are, generative AI tools are doing, is unlocking new capabilities. Now, previously, the augmented perspective was really focusing on creating efficiency and effectiveness for humans. We're augmenting certain tasks and work that we're doing. I'll look at it more from the human enhancement. So I'm not just augmenting a task or making you more productive at your work. I'm trying to use these tools to make you better at what you do, enhance your capabilities from this. And so that's why I place this model from the replacement to the augmented perspective. Now, this is nothing new. We're talking about this phenomenon as if it's just completely revolutionary, but we've had these same cycles throughout history. So we look at the internet. You know, in the 1990s, companies were making this argument, should we adopt internet technology? Do we need a web presence? You know, universities were worried, oh, students are going to cheat. You know, students are using the web to look up information. You know, we talk about the iPhone. Company said, should we be adopting this new technology? We think about IoT. Should we be adopting this new technology? We've gone through these same cycles with every technology. Now, whenever I talk to companies asking, how should we leverage AI? What should we do? I always show this diagram and ask them, do you think about the web? Should you utilize the web? Should you utilize smartphones? Should you utilize IoT? The answer is always no. We've been doing that for years. Don't even think about it. It's already ingrained in the organization. Now, imagine in the 1990s, a company decided, no, we don't want to do that web thing. Where are they now? Or in 2007, 2008, no, we don't want to address this smart technology. We don't want to address smartphones. Well, where are those companies now? And I think in another 5 or 10 years, we're not going to be asking these questions, should we be adopting AI technology? Is this something we should take seriously? Because in 5 or 10 years, if your answer to that question was not yes, you're probably not going to exist. The industry is going to leave you behind. And so it's not a matter of should we adopt or should we do. You know, adoption, technology, research really is kind of pointless at this point. So it's how are we going to adopt it? How are we going to leverage this technology and what impact is it going to have? And so really, generative AI completely changed the game. We've been doing AI work for decades. In 2003, I was working on a project for an e-commerce website where we were using regression analysis and algorithms to predict what products people are going to purchase. Because before that, we had the recommendation systems that if you purchase one product, there's other products that are commonly paired together, and we recommend these products because we're matching the products together. But whenever we started doing the algorithms, we identified features of our customers. We started collecting data, understand our customers' habits, their psychological profiles, and based on those features, we can create a regression analysis that would output probabilities of products that each individual customer is likely to purchase if presented with that product. Now, this was hugely successful, but the challenge was in 2003, we didn't call it machine learning. It wasn't called AI. We called it algorithms. They ran in batch mode overnight, so it took 8 hours to run these algorithms. So every day, our customers would get new recommendations based on the activity they had the day before. As technology increased, processing power became much better, data storage became cheaper, we started to automate these tools, and that's where machine learning really started. So we've been using these tools for decades now. Now they're becoming automated, and they've advanced to not just predict outcomes, have prediction variables, probabilities, but now they're generating new content. They're generating new things, new ideas, and they're performing cognitive tasks, which they weren't capable of doing before. And so that's really what the biggest change is. And what that change did is it started impacting individuals in the tasks they performed. Because machine learning has mostly been embedded within the organization, within the business processes, trying to predict things, create more efficiency of the organization. ChatGPT being commercialized in 2022 took these tools that were highly sophisticated and they put it in the hands of everyday users. Think about that. All the other technologies have basically done the same thing. The iPhone, it took smart technology, which was generally used for business use, put it in the hands of the everyday user. So now everybody has that type of computing power. And it changed society. It changed how people interacted. Well, when was the last time you just drove to a friend's house, knocked on the door just to see if they were there? No, we use smart technology for that. And generative AI same type of effect on society, but at a much larger scale. So that's why a lot of my research is really focused on this augmented approach. But seeing the prompt engineering, all these things going on, is becoming competitive. Well, I think prompt engineering is eventually going to go away. It's a big hot topic right now, but these tools are becoming so sophisticated, you don't need to be an expert at prompt engineering anymore, because the system is going to do it for you. I was playing around with another tool last week. It was called, I forget, Hainer something. It was a video imaging technology. Now, what it does is it has the prompt engineering for prompt engineering. So it will ask you, what type of setting are you looking for? So I can say 1950s black and white movie, and it will write the prompt for me. I don't have to do that. I can say I want it to be some vintage video, I want it to be certain color schemes or a cartoon or make something similar. It will generate the prompts for me. So now we got AI not just generating content, but it's generating the prompts to generate content as well. It's assisting the users. So it's becoming easier to use. And so those type of tasks that we do with generative AI, these are what we look at as tactical AI. And so it was a tennis player from the 1800s, had this quote that I found was very interesting. I completely forgot the name, but it said, tactics or what we do when we know what to do, or when we have something to do. Strategy is what we do when we have nothing to do. It takes more vision, more thinking to come up with something. That's why we have the difference between tactical and strategic management. A lot of what we're doing with generative AI is done at the tactical perspective. So now we're trying to move more towards that strategic perspective, where the organization needs to implement it from a top-down approach. And so with the strategic perspective, this focuses more on the long-term planning, trying to understand the business processes. So how do we take generative AI and integrate it within the organization, not just having our employees download a tool that they're using. And so I was given a presentation at a hospital a few weeks ago, Wellstar, and their CEO and their executive staff asked us to do some of the AI training for them. And they wanted to understand what AI is, but from their perspective, the tactical use of AI is really irrelevant at this point because their employees already know it. Their employees are already using these tools. Even though there are some HIPAA violations that they may have to be concerned, but they have to develop a strategic focus of how to implement these tools within the organization rather than just the employees doing it. It needs to encompass knowledge management. When you got one employee that's benefiting from these tools, how do we take that knowledge and replicate it to the other employees? How do we create communication channels? Because as of right now, a lot of the generative AI stuff is just working in a silo. Individual person is adopting the tools in their own, and they're increasing their individual performance. And I always caution employees, don't replace yourself. We hear that AI is going to replace jobs. Well, the first jobs are going to be replaced are those that end up on that Mount Stupid of the Dunning-Kruger effect. Because at that point, you're nothing but a middleman. You're the middleman between the AI and the organization. You're entering the prompts, AI is doing the work. So it's very easy to eliminate those jobs. So if you're using AI, we need to teach employees, teach people how to use it to enhance your capabilities so you still bring value to the organization, not letting the AI do all the work. It focuses on the intergroup coordination. We were looking at it from the strategic perspective, not just the individual's impact. And then the strategic vision for the organization, because there's much wider impacts that we're still figuring out. And so with these views of strategic AI, how do we change the organization to make employees leverage it properly that's going to impact the business, not just their personal productivity? So two of the cases that I was going through with the Wellstar, and I thought it would be pretty interesting to kind of briefly discuss those today, is one is a company called Shreya, and I've done some work with them. They're based out of Atlanta. They're actually using large numerical models. So they're taking a different approach, and they're looking at from more the strategic perspective. And so with the large numerical models, they're still doing the regression analysis, but instead of predicting outcomes, what they're doing is they're using the generative networks, and they use GANs and other ones. They try to take the outcomes that they want to achieve, how do we increase productivity, and then use the AI to make the recommendations for the business processes to find the efficiencies in the organization to achieve those goals. So it's almost using regression analysis with a what-if analysis and planning backwards. But with the power of generative AI, it makes much better recommendations than a human trying to figure out that equation on their own. And so one of the systems that they tested was readmission within 30 days for a hospital. And so using logistic regression and machine learning, they were able to create an algorithm that predicted the likelihood of somebody returning to the hospital 30 days after readmission. Then applying that with all patients, they can identify the percentage of patients that are most likely to return. And so if, for example, 30% of our patients are coming back within 30 days, we want to get that down to 20%. And so how could the generative AI evaluate these scenarios? And out of all the different features that were used to come up with that probability, what are the recommendations that the generative AI can give to increase the business processes or improve the business processes to be able to reduce readmissions? And they've had up to a 99% success rate on some of these algorithms that they're doing. And they're not using large language models, they're using large numerical models. So it's taking what we've done with regression analysis, machine learning before, on a much larger scale. Everybody's moving towards text. They're focused on KPIs, the key performance indicators, that's going to impact the organization in those specific outcome variables. The Mayo Clinic, another medical example, is using AI in a series of different tools for precision medicine. So by identifying different features, that's both internal to your body, what's going on in your medical condition, external to your environment, your health habits, your environment where you live, in all your surroundings, they can then create these models that can create a more precise type of medical treatment that's customized for each individual person. It's not just what drug to recommend, but what is the optimal amount of that drug that's going to have the best effect for each individual patient. Because before, if you go to the hospital and you're sick, they just give everybody the same medicine, the same dosage. But it's going to have different effects on people. Some people will have adverse effects, some people have no effect. They can cut it down to the individual person to determine how to maximize the benefits using AI and deep learning. And so this really comes back to creating an innovative, transformative strategy. And this is where a lot of my work is starting to go moving forward now, is helping organizations. How do we identify what the problems are, focus on the business goals, outcomes that they're trying to get, and then prioritize. What are the low-hanging fruits? Where can we have an immediate impact, and then start working on the bigger problems? Because we got to get the return on investment. For most organizations, that's the bottom line. How can we afford to do this? Then develop the strategy for implementing these tools, the workflow integration within the organization, and it really revolves around these 4 pillars of AI strategy. Having the vision. That's where that quote comes back, is strategy is knowing what to do when there's nothing to do. How can you have that vision to identify something that's not broken? Identify where those benefits are coming. It's going to impact the organization. What is the value of that? How are we going to get people to adopt it? How's it going to affect our current employees, and the overall impact? Because a lot of people are scared of AI. Once you start talking about impacting a job, automating tasks, doing stuff, people start worrying that they're going to lose their job. There is a lawyer's office. I was talking to a guy there, and he was telling me that he can use generative AI to automate 50% of the work his secretaries do. And he has 2 secretaries. So if you can automate 50% of their work, we can fire one of the secretaries, combine all the tasks to the remaining secretary, and save like $40,000 a year. That's great. Well, I try to tell him, take a different perspective. Instead of automating the task and firing one of your secretaries, why don't you give both of your secretaries more work, where essentially they're doing the work of 4 people, so without any additional costs, you have the productivity of hiring 2 additional people, taking that augmented approach. Think of it from a more strategic perspective. And then there's going to be risk involved. There's always going to be risk. And so you look at OpenAI, they're under several lawsuits right now for data that they've used that's publicly available, but yet companies are complaining at the use that their proprietary data is being included. What happens if the GDPR or the CCPA, which is the California Consumer Privacy Act, they come back and say that you have to delete customer data whenever they request it? This is something we haven't addressed yet, because these governing bodies have in their clause that as a consumer, I can protect my private information, and if I come to you, you have to delete it. I have the right to not be known. Once that data is within the LLM, how do you get it out? It's already part of the learning system. It's not just deleting a file, it's accumulated in that body of knowledge. And nobody's addressed these questions yet. That how does the GDPR affect our ability or sustainability of these LLMs long term? And the government comes back and says that data needs to be removed. Worst case scenario is you have to get rid of ChatGPT, start over. That's going to set us back. And I was talking to Tony Vance yesterday about it. From a cybersecurity perspective, if we take that route, those who are developing responsible AI are going to have setbacks. But your bad players are not going to adhere to these laws. They're going to still continue developing these AI tools and have a significant advantage because they're developing adversarial networks with data we're not allowed to use. And how do we combat that? So organizations need to start thinking from a more strategic view and not just the tactical view of getting small enhancements from individual employees, but how do we have larger benefits for the entire organization? And then data governance and policy. It concludes it. So we got to think about the data governance. What are the rules? How do we govern this? Think about employees using it. How do we protect the data? So it's going to be very interesting to see where this goes. But I'm excited to be here today. I think that concludes the time that I have. We're going to let Tony come up. He's going to give his talk, and then afterwards we'll have some question and answers. And if you don't have any questions then, I'll be around the conference, and I hope to talk to many of you then. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Professor French, for your insightful presentation. We will now have Professor Vance to the stage to deliver his talk, and afterwards we'll have our Q&A session.
Okay, good to be with you. Can you hear me okay? There we go.
All right, so I'm pleased to share this research with you. I'm presenting on behalf of my co-authors, David Ergel from Carve Systems, Brock Kerwin from the University of Pennsylvania, and Jeff Jenkins and Bonnie Ederson from Brigham Young University. And I myself am from Virginia Tech. And we together comprise the Neurosecurity Lab. And we look at security and privacy issues through the lens of neuroscience. And I was asked by the organizers to talk about NeuroIS, which is the application of neuroscience knowledge and neuroscience tools to the domain of information systems, because they thought this would be interesting to many of you. And so this is an example of NeuroIS research for you to consider about how this might be useful for your own research domains. So the goal of NeuroIS is to open the black box of the brain to try to understand hidden neural processes or constructs that are difficult to measure, or to measure behaviors or thoughts or responses from people without having to ask them for subjective answers. We can just objectively observe the brain to see what they're doing. And so we use physiological measures like eye tracking or measuring stress through cortisol, which we measure through these chewing swabs that gather saliva. It's kind of gross, but anyways, you can measure stress that way, or through mouse cursor tracking. Now, none of these measure neural activities directly, but they do provide very helpful mental indices for processes that are happening in the brain. But we also use neural methods like electroencephalography or EEG. And this is a very powerful tool that measures electrical signals from the scalp and does so with a very high temporal resolution so that you can measure responses to a stimulus within milliseconds. In fact, you can measure someone's response to a stimulus before a person even consciously is aware of the stimulus. And another example is functional magnetic resonance imaging, or fMRI, which has very fine spatial resolution so that you can measure mental activity with pinpoint accuracy in a region of the brain. So today's study I'm going to show you involves fMRI. So here's just a little bit of background on how this works. So first of all, an fMRI scanner is essentially a giant electromagnet, and it's so powerful, to give you an idea, that a junkyard crane has a field strength of approximately 1 Tesla. And in contrast, the kind of MRI scanners that most researchers use is at least 3 times that strong. And the field strength is so strong that if you put a subject inside the bore of the scanner, all of the atomic nuclei in that person will align with the electromagnetic field. And that provides a foundational condition for imaging. So because of this, you can get very detailed images of the brain, and pardon for being so personal, but this is my brain. And what's kind of cool is that if you have a 3D scanner, you can make a 3D image of the brain. So I could toss this out into the audience, but I'm afraid I'd hit somebody. But anyways, so as impressive as this is, I think even more impressive with fMRI is the F part, the functional part. And what that does is that it allows you to measure where neural activity is happening in the brain. So the way our brain works is that when certain mental processes are activated, those regions of the brain that are responsible for those areas consume more energy, which requires additional oxygen through blood flow. And so you can actually see blood moving from one area of the brain to another as this process occurs, and it's called the hemodynamic response. And because deoxygenated hemoglobin has a different electric signal, MRI scanners are able to pick that up. And so through this signal called the blood oxygenation level dependent signal, or BOLD signal, you can actually observe blood moving from one part of the brain to another through this hemodynamic response. And that way, you actually can correlate certain mental processes with specific regions of the brain. So these neural correlates can be very useful to understand IS phenomena and IS constructs. So this really gets to the idea of why would you want to do this? because it is expensive, it is rather cumbersome to use, but there are some benefits that you can gain by using fMRI that you can't by using other means. So for example, you can measure hidden processes, hidden emotions like fear, anxiety, trust, or unconscious responses like habituation, which I'll talk about today, or risk aversion, or complex processes like cognitive load. And all of these can be measured objectively without a person's involvement. So with that background, let me tell you about this study today. This is about a problem of security warnings and how people tend to disregard them. So this message you can see behind me is from Microsoft OneNote. This is an actual security message, and there are a number of organizations that have been compromised because this message was disregarded by users. Maybe they downloaded a malicious file without realizing it, or maybe they visited some site that had a download that they weren't aware of. But the point is that this message popped up and they disregarded it, and their computer and eventually their organization was compromised as a result. Now contrast that with this message on the right. So the message on the right is a notification. It's not a security message. There's actually no impact whatsoever if you click OK. But if you click the message on the left, your organization could be compromised. And in fact, that's happened many times in just the last few years. So this is an example of the problem of security warning disregard, but also the problem of people blurring notifications and security warnings. And this problem has been suspected for a while in cybersecurity, but has never really been empirically measured. And so we don't have any way to really deal with it. And this problem of this blurring of notifications and warnings is actually reinforced by the user interface design principle of consistency, which means that you should have your visual elements appear the same way with similar behaviors across all applications. And this principle of consistency is reinforced by major companies like Microsoft, Google, Apple, and it's a good principle, but in the application of cybersecurity, we can see how this has some problems. So this is related to the cognitive process of habituation, which is decreased response to neural or repeated stimulation. And it's been observed in all organisms, even simple organisms like the California sea slug. If it's stimulated, there'll be a response, but if it's stimulated again, that response will decrease. And it's also been observed in the human brain for all kinds of things. And in my past research, my co-authors and I have shown that people do habituate to security messages. In fact, after only the second or third exposure to a warning, areas of the brain responsible for visual processing decrease significantly. So this means that if you're a security designer, you only have a few exposures before your users just tune out the message altogether. But there's another aspect of habituation that we didn't study, which is generalization of habituation, or just generalization. And this is described in this seminal paper that described a number of different characteristics of habituation. It describes generalization like this, where habituation to a response to a given stimulus will generalize to other stimuli. That means that habituation will carry over to a brand new stimulus that's never been encountered before. And this is related to this problem of the blurring of security warnings with notifications, because you may see a notification dozens of times, hundreds of times, and become thoroughly habituated to that message so that you hardly even read it. Maybe just click it away just automatically without thinking. And that same habituation may carry over or generalize to a security warning that you have actually never seen before. That's the problem that we're addressing here. So our first research question is to first empirically establish that this does happen. Does habituation to a notification generalize to a security warning? And then also, we want to see what we can do to make this happen less. So applying habituation theory, this is basically what happens. When a person encounters a new stimulus, a mental model is created in the brain. and that the next time that stimulus is encountered, that the brain will compare that stimulus to the mental model, and if they're similar, the model will be strengthened, and the response to that stimulus will be inhibited, and that's the path where the stimulus matches the model. In contrast, though, if you find a stimulus that doesn't match the mental model, the model will be amended, and then the response will be restored to what it used to be. The inhibition will be released. And then this is this general process. So as long as the stimulus matches the mental model, there will be a inhibition of the response. So the first hypothesis is that habituation to non-security related notifications will carry over to security warnings that have a visual appearance that's similar. And the next hypothesis is related, that this process of generalization will happen less to novel security warnings with a distinctive visual appearance. So we tested this, first of all, with a behavioral experiment. And we used an online experiment involving Firefox, and users from the United States, approximately 660 users, using Amazon Mechanical Turk. And the task we gave them was an image processing task. So we used a deception protocol with approval so that we didn't tell people that we were observing how they responded to security messages. Instead, we told them, this is an image classification task. We want you to help train an AI to detect the difference or determine the difference between a drawing of Batman and a photo of Batman. So it doesn't really matter what the task was, but that's what it was. And they had to choose photo or drawing, and they were compensated in part for how well they performed this classification task. And every time they performed this task, we would pop up a Firefox notification, and they would have to click this notification to dismiss it. And so what happened throughout the course of this task is that they naturally became habituated to the performance notification, just as a consequence of having to see it and respond to it multiple times. Now, we also selected from Firefox actual security warnings in Firefox. So on the right, in the top right, you see a location permission warning. And on the bottom right, you see an extension permission warning. If you install a browser extension, they have various permissions, and these are real permissions that I'm showing you. And the idea was to see how do people respond to these warnings compared to the performance notification, because they share a similar visual appearance. And we contrasted that with these other security warnings from Firefox that have a different visual appearance. So for example, they'd be performing the task, and they would see one of these warnings presented. So just to visualize what's happening here, the first time that a stimulus is encountered, you'll see a response. And that response will be highest when it's first encountered. But with multiple repetitions, that response will gradually decrease. And this is classic habituation at work, this general pattern of decline. Now, in contrast, if you observe a new stimulus, you'd expect that that response will reset to the original levels where the first stimulus was first encountered. But if there's characteristics between this new stimulus and the old stimulus that are close enough, then response to that new stimulus will be reduced to the point where it may be near to the stimulus that have been already habituated to. And this is generalization of habituation. And we can actually measure the difference to where we would expect that stimulus response to be versus where it actually is. And so to apply it to this context, we had different experimental conditions. In one condition, we had users who responded to the warning first before they saw any performance notification in the task. And we also saw, in a different condition, people who responded to the warning after viewing 14 performance notifications. And by measuring the difference between these two experimental conditions, we can measure generalization. And do the same thing for warnings that have a different or more different visual appearance. Now, we also want to measure the neural concept or process of fatigue. Because a rival explanation is, well, someone's not really habituating to this, or this habituation is not really generalizing to another stimulus. The person's just tired. Or maybe at a neural level, someone's tired, and that's the reason for the general decline for multiple stimuli, even though they haven't been encountered before. And so a way to rule this out is that you would take a generalized stimulus and you'd introduce a new stimulus, let's say, in this case, represented by this yellow duck that looks nothing like the other two stimuli. And if someone's response is now high to this brand new novel stimulus that has nothing to do with the others, then we know that yes, generalization did occur. Someone did generalize to this green stimulus, and we know that because response is high to the yellow duck. There's not fatigue happening here. And so we actually developed, my colleagues are from Pittsburgh, and this is some weird thing they do in Pittsburgh. It's this gigantic rubber duck, which is real, they actually do this. Anyways, this looks nothing like the other security warnings, and this was our example of what we call a novel foil that measured whether people are actually fatigued in a task or whether they're generalizing to the warnings and notifications. And we measure fatigue in the same way, showing it in the very first position relative to the very last position in a different experimental condition. So altogether, we had 10 conditions showing each warning and the novel foil at the very first position versus the very last position. And for dependent variables of habituation, we used response time, which is the difference between the very first exposure and when they finally responded to the warning, and also warning adherence, which is just whether they responded to the warning appropriately or not. So overall, we saw that there's about a 20% increase in response time when someone received the warning at the very first position to the last position. But for those people who received a security warning that was similar to the performance notification, the response time was between 30 and 40% faster, so much faster for the warnings that look similar to the performance notification. And for warning adherence, it was between 2 and 2.6 times higher disregard of the warnings for those warnings that look similar to the performance notification. So this is pretty strong evidence that generalization is happening. But we were blessed to have some very insightful reviewers, and a reviewer for our initial submission of this said, well, you think it's generalization, but how do you really know? Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's cognitive engagement. Maybe the subjects in the task are more and more cognitively engaged over the course of the experiment, so that by the end, they are just naturally responding more quickly because they're more engaged. So that's a valid rival hypothesis that we had no way to test behaviorally, and this is an example of what NeuroIS can do. So in study 2, we said, all right, we are going to address reviewer 2 in a decisive way, or that's what we hoped. And so the objective was to rule this rival explanation out. And we also wanted to test something else while we were going through the trouble of doing this, and that is, what if we just don't change the visual appearance, but we change the mode of interaction, so that instead of clicking a button to dismiss the warning, you actually had to do something to manipulate it, like drag a slider or something else like that, and that maybe through the course of this behavioral response, it would break the user out of this habituated automatic response. So this is our third hypothesis, which is that people will generalize less to a security warning that had a distinctive mode of interaction. So we used an MRI scanner to do this. We had 25 subjects, which is typical of an MRI study. And the same image classification task as before, but here we had different warnings. So the warning at the top is similar to the one in the other experiment. This is a Firefox extension permission warning. And the other two warnings are the same warning, but the mode of interaction is different. One of these, you have to manipulate it by dragging this widget to the red dot or the green dot to respond to the message. And the other one, you have to drag this slider. And the point is, it's just different from this, what I call the click to dismiss paradigm of just dismissing a message. And then we also had these household objects just to serve as novel foils, just to show that this is different from the warnings completely. And here again is to rule out fatigue. So here's our experimental design. I'm not going to walk through all the details of this, but simply, we took all the warnings and novel foils together. We randomly selected one and displayed one of them after a user classified 2 to 10 images. And they went through this process for 56 sets. So a set is just what I just described, responding to an image, classifying it, and then receiving a warning. And what's interesting is that over time, we see a very clear pattern of habituation to the performance notification. This is what you'd expect to see, that first you see a high attention as measured in the ventral visual processing stream, and then over time, that activity decreases. And this directly rebuts what the reviewer was hypothesizing. We would expect that if someone were more cognitively engaged over time, that the visual processing centers of the brain would increase. We would see an increase of activity over the course of the experiment. In fact, we see the opposite. So that's very strong evidence that that rival hypothesis is not happening here. But the other thing which is interesting about this is it illustrates that we didn't have to prompt the user for some kind of response. We could just measure this from the brain with no user interaction. And that can also be helpful at times with Neuroscientific studies. So something else, talking about the mode of interaction, we found that although the warning that had the button showed no difference in response to how people responded relative to the performance notification, for those messages that had the slider or you had to drag the widget to the right or left, that was significantly higher in response. It was significantly more resistant to generalization compared to the other two. So we had one last study to look at, and I'll describe this briefly. And that is, the problem with this design is that we wanted to rule out the effect of interaction with a warning. But the trouble is that these lower two warnings in this figure behind me had a different visual appearance. They just looked different from the warning message at the top. And so we did this experiment one more time just to rule out or to hold steady mode of interaction, holding visual appearance constant. So in this online experiment, again, we had 241 users, all from the United States via Mechanical Turk. Same image classification task, same warnings essentially, but now we had the slider and the buttons on the same image, and we only activated or deactivated different elements. And the purpose here is to make these things as visually similar to each other as possible, while still indicating to the user how these messages should be responded to. So for the bottom left message, you have to click the button to respond, and in the bottom right message, you have to move the slider to respond to the message. So about 60 people in each treatment, and overall, we saw a similar pattern, where overall people were responding about 20% faster when they received the warning last versus when they received it first. But for those people who received the message with the same mode of interaction paradigm, that speed was between 30 and 40% faster. And people disregarded the message between 2.5, closer to 3 times more often than that warning message that had the slider. So that's a pretty big behavioral change just by changing the mode of interaction. And that's what this figure here just depicts. So some takeaways from these experiments. One is that habituation really does generalize from notifications to security messages, which means that even though you've never seen a security message before, you may already be habituated to it just because you see notifications on a frequent basis on your computer or maybe your mobile device, and that can influence how you respond to these messages. But if we just change the visual appearance of a warning, disregarding the UI principle of consistency, that it makes a measurable difference, a substantial difference in how people respond to a warning. And if you change the mode of interaction, it can have a very similar effect. It can have a very positive effect in getting people to respond to the message without having to change the visual appearance of the message, of the warning. But the overall message is that we should design these systems for how our brains work. That rather than try to fight against our mental processes, we can design systems that are compatible with how the human brain works. And it also implies that security engineers, in addition to have to worry about attackers, also need to consider the biology of their users, for whom, in many instances, their brain is working against them. If you're interested in doing an MRI study yourself, I recommend this paper by Angelica DeMoca on how to conduct an fMRI study. And I also recommend this paper, which I just published with my co-authors, about how to combine Neuroscientific and behavioral experiments together to gain additional insights. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Vance, for your amazing presentation. If you could please stay on stage, and we could also have Professor Aaron French to join us on stage for the Q&A sessions. And now we will open the Q&A session for the audience. If you have any question, please raise your hand, and we'll give you the mic to ask your question.
Don't everybody jump at once.
There is a question here, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So first of all, thank you very much. Now I don't see you because I have all the cameras in front of me. Thank you very much for your presentations, both of you. My first question would go towards your presentation, Anthony. You talked about fatigue and habituation. So I was thinking, how can we train ourselves to work against those mechanisms in our brains? Do you also look into that a little bit?
So that's a really good question. We have not yet examined that, but that's the next logical step to see to what extent can people train themselves to overcome these limitations. The difficulty is that we just do it naturally. And so without focused attention, we'll just tune things out. For example, in this auditorium, you can hear the air conditioner pumping air into this facility. And now that I mention it, you probably have noticed it, even though your brain has tuned it out for the past several hours. That's an example of habituation. So it's really difficult to control it entirely, but I'm sure that with conscious effort and training, one could overcome it. But that's the trick to see is how sustainable that will be, or how robust that would be to competing stimuli or distractions.
I guess I kind of build on that. My first year in industry, I actually clicked on one of those links that spread a virus through the entire company. So I was subject to the phishing attack. I have never been phished since then, because that instance was so devastating for the company that I am extremely aware of this. So maybe we need to harm everybody to make them aware of it. Or, I don't know.
Good question.
Thank you very much. Thank you. These were two interesting talks. What I find particularly interesting was that you both touched very different units of analysis, right? The organizational level, you, Aaron, and then Tony, you really talked about the individual level analysis. Now, Tony, you talked about, Aaron, you talked about all the effects that happen on the organizational level, right? Shifting from the tactical use to the strategic use of AI and so on. Mm-hmm. There was recently a paper coming out, I think it was published by an MIT scientist last week or 2 weeks ago, that the uptake of Gen AI in an organization, and I think you observed over thousands of scientists, the successful uptake was really dependent on the individual. So some individual scientists succeeded even more by using Gen AI, while others just didn't improve the performance a lot. So it seems that some of the effects that you described are not only organizational level, but also depend on differences on the individual level. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that? And then, Tony, what do you think about the organizational level in terms of how that influences the findings you generally make with Neuroscientific studies?
No, I mean, that's a great point, because it does start with the individual level. One of the things that we're looking at, I didn't really get into, is the autonomic organization or the autonomic enterprise, where, from a medical term, you know, your body has things that just happen. You know, if you get pinched, you have a stimuli, and your body just reacts to pain or other things. So we're looking at, from the organization, how do we take those individual impacts, capture that data that's going to stem through the organization, that's going to have a wider impact rather than just the individual. Because there's going to be people that are going to perform differently with AI tools or not. I mean, that's just going to be nature. But how do we take those results, feed them in either to a knowledge management system to try to impact others at different levels of success, but then the results from the generative systems, get that data and everything fed back into the organization as part of the business process that's going to distribute the data throughout the whole organization. And so those are some of the things we're looking at, that autonomic system versus the somatic system where the employees are pulling the triggers and doing things themselves.
So for my part, I'm not aware of a NeuroIS study that takes organizational processes or events and examines how that affects people at a neural level or at a neurophysiological level. That would be really interesting to see, because clearly it happens. We're all affected by the organizations to which we belong and other organizations. I would love to see a paper like that submitted to MISQ. So I hope one of you, if you're interested in doing something like that, let's talk.
Thanks.
So Tony, did I notice that when you were measuring the response time to some of those stimuli, that the slider bar, the response time went up?
Yes.
So is that saying that the cognitive load on the user gets higher?
I think so. I think it is different, so I think there is a little bit of a just a little more cumbersome. I mean, there's not much to learn. You just move the bar across. But over time, it was a little bit higher. I forget whether it was significantly higher, but it was a little bit higher towards the end. They took longer to respond than the very first time.
That could be fatigue. That's what I'm thinking of. It might be fatigue and using the interface. So you've had that balance between your security and the cognitive load on the user.
So maybe the answer is I need to conduct another fMRI study to once again rule out the effect of fatigue there. Yeah, that's possible.
We could take the question from that side now, please.
Thank you all for your presentation. I just have a question for you, Professor. You mentioned something about losing the job because of the AI technology. This could be happening in any organization or business, but do you agree with this statement saying AI will make the employee lose their job in every section or in every organization, even in healthcare? I mean, in hospital here, would technology will make really people losing their job?
I think it's possible, you know, because organizations need to have some responsibility at the same time, because we can't just replace everybody. It's going to have wider societal effects. But employees are going to be at a higher risk of being replaced, or the ones that are becoming dependent on the technology. Because again, for example, if I'm using AI to teach, and I decide I just want to use AI videos, and I'm going to generate content through ChatGPT and develop my syllabus through ChatGPT and put everything online and completely automate it, what value am I bringing to organization? So it'd be very easy just to replace me because the system is doing all the work. But if I use it to enhance my teaching, what I already have, what I bring to the table, get some of those repetitive tasks out of the way so I can spend more time on student engagement, now it's much more difficult to replace me because the AI can't do those additional tasks that I bring to the table.
But in healthcare and hospital, it's very risky to replace for example, a nurse or someone who expert in that area and have like a robot or something who do the job, which you see now it's trending, but I'm not sure if it really will be happening in the future or not.
Yeah, well, a lot of your nurses, you know, whenever you come in, they take your temperature and they check your height and do all these things. Those are tasks that could easily be automated. But with the nurses, at least the hospital visits I've had, nurses are trying to provide some of that humanization, you know, personalization to the care. It's not just taking the temperature, it's trying to make you feel at ease, to calm you down, get you to open up and talk a little bit. You know, I got a 6-year-old son and take him to the hospital, and he's scared to death. But when the nurse kind of plays with him, he feels more comfortable. Those are things the AI system won't be able to do. And so there's still going to be some of that personalization. There are going to be jobs that will be replaced, but new jobs are constantly being created. I mean, we got data scientists. We look at social media. We got social media specialist with an organization. I mean, there's so many job roles that exist today that we didn't have 10 or 20 years ago. So the workforce is going to change, and we just need to be able to change with it. So,
Thank you so much.
thank you.
Thank you so much for your last question. This was a great conclusion to the amazing Q&A session for Professor Vance and Professor French. We will now leave for a 30-minute break and then resume with the last session, that is a panel discussion, which will commence after the break. Thank you so much.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good evening, everyone. Before we start, I would like to ask all of you to come to the middle, if you don't mind. I think because, we're going to have everyone in the middle.
Please.
And this is for a purpose, actually, that we're going to have, and we're going to reveal it at the end. So if I can kindly ask you, the ladies and gentlemen, to come to the middle, if you don't mind, I would really appreciate it. We're going to make you walk a little bit. I mean, it's the last, event in the conference, and we are all tired. So let's walk a little bit, do some exercise before we start. All right. Once again, good evening, everyone. My name is Mazen Shaoush. I'm the president of the Saudi Association for Information Systems. I am also an assistant professor in MIS at King Fahd University of Petroleum and Minerals, and also a program co-chair at the conference.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mona Liami. I'm assistant professor at Taif University. And I'm serving as a vice president of the SaudiCIS and also a conference co-chair.
All right. So thank you so much for staying with us until this late hours of the conference. We will try to make it, light, interactive. Pay attention to the details because we will have some, Q&A. We are flipping the Q&A to you, not to us. We are being strategic in the way we do this kind of event. But here is the trick. We're going to give you some gift cards if you answer the questions correctly. So stay tuned and remember the information that we're going to present about the Saudi Association for Information Systems.
Okay, let's start with the biggest question that we have received a lot. What is the SaudiCIS? The SaudiCIS stands for it's the official chapter of the Association for Information Systems that serves the Saudi Arabia. It's serving the community here, as we can see, the Saudi Arabia and the region. It aims to promote the exchange of ideas, experiences, and knowledge among the scholars and professionals. Our vision is towards a pioneering Saudi information systems community regionally and internationally. And our mission is building a scientific community of the IS in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and promoting the exchange of ideas, experiences, and knowledge.
When we established the conference, we thought about what strategic objectives that we would like to achieve with our IS community here in Saudi Arabia. So our founders of the association thought about 5 main objectives, including building a mental image of the association and information systems in Saudi Arabia, developing information system society in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, advancing scientific research in the field of information systems, achieving stability and financial sustainability, and seeking to harmonize between the outputs of information system specialization and the needs of the market in Saudi Arabia and also in the region.
Okay, let's talk about the first leadership in the period of 2022 and 2024. As we can see here, Mazen Shawush as a president, and as a vice president. And we have Dr. Iman Al-Yami. She's the chief admin officer, with Amal Al-Sali as a chief financial officer. And we have our amazing committees and our directors. We start with the first committee, the publications committee, directed by Tawfiq Al-Ashur, and our amazing volunteers. We have Iman Al-Harbi as a vice director, عواطف العتيبي, نورا العجيري, مشاعل المقبل, آلاء الميرابي, and Raid Al-Harbi. The second committee is the Programs and Events Committee, directed by Musa البشراوي, زينب الشبيب, البيان الردادي, شيماء أبو الأنس, and منير الشيخ. The third committee is the Education Committee, directed by Amir الجار الله, بدور الحياني, عبد الرحمن المقبل, آلاء الحارثي, أمل الخليوي, and Turki الزهراني. The fourth one is the Training and Development Committee, directed by Muhammad al-Hiresi, زهراء داحش, أبرار الجحدلي, عبد المجيد القحطاني, and Bayan al-Dalham. The fifth one is the Public Relations Committee, directed by Fadi Al-Mazyad, and we have our amazing social media members in this committee, Amatullah, Suleiman, Samahir Al-Judaybi, and Nawal Al-Muraysil. And the last one is the IT Committee, directed by Mai Bantan and Dua Al-Rifai. Okay, Mazen, what is our story?
So for every big achievement, and we believe we have achieved big things with our IS community here in Saudi Arabia, there's a story. And our story basically started back in 2016 when Tawfiq Al-Ashur and I were PhD students. Tawfiq was a PhD student at Georgia State University, and I was a PhD student at the University of Georgia. And as you can see, we look young. Tawfiq even looks younger in those days. I still look handsome, by the way, so yeah, give me some credit for that. But yeah, the purpose for the start was actually to serve 2 of our colleagues here at King Fahd University, to help them get admission in different reputable master's and PhD programs, and to help them think about their future. Since we started our PhD, now we were lucky to get a lot of information and exposure from the leaders of the IS community in both schools. So we wanted to transfer such kind of knowledge to our colleagues. But after that, we decided to expand because we believe that we have something valuable to share. So many PhD students were included in the WhatsApp group, and many others who were seeking admission at higher education were also involved in the WhatsApp group. The group started with 4. In 2020, the group reached around 150 participants in the WhatsApp group.
Yes.
COVID-19 started, as you know. And with COVID-19, Zoom usage grow with that. And we decided to actually take advantage of Zoom and have activities that we can share with others, not only in a WhatsApp group, but also with people who are living in different countries, where we can also expand our sharing and share with them the things that we know and we believe about education and the future of information systems in Saudi Arabia. So we had different Zoom activities, like what is a lecture review, what do you expect in your first year in the PhD program, and many other activities that we had. We continued our
Also, Mazen mentioned the tiny conference that we held.
Yeah. Exactly. So we had a tiny conference because all the conferences went virtual, right? So we told our members in the group that if you have a paper accepted in one of the major conferences, come and present it in our tiny or small conference, so that all of us, your publications can share knowledge with each other. Exactly. Yes. And then in July 2020, we decided again to expand our presence on social media. So we established 2 accounts, one on Twitter and also one on YouTube. And this is in July 2020. So remember the date, because,
we announced our identity.
Yeah. And now regarding the logo for the Saudi Association. Now this is inspired by Muna and her vision and the way we think about the association. So we were inspired by 3 elements. First of all, the logo of the Association for Information Systems, and the logo for the Saudi Vision 2030, and also the symbol of generosity, which is the palm tree. We combined all those elements in the logo that you see in front of you. So it's really something we are proud about, and Muna insisted in including the palm instead of the eye in the Saudi, so that it really represents, the culture and the heritage and the generosity of Saudi Arabia.
Also with Dr. Fadi Al-Mazyad.
Exactly. Dr.
Yeah,
Fadi Al-Mazyad,
director of the Public Relations Committee,
was included in designing also the logo for the Saudi Association. Now, we continued our activities virtually because we saw the value, and many people actually were excited to have such kind of events available for them. In the past, it was difficult to tap into such kind of knowledge and information about academia, and especially for those who are living in Saudi Arabia and didn't have the chance to pursue their education outside the country. So bringing the knowledge inside the country was a mission for all of us to bring and share with everyone. So we continued our activities. One of the activities that we had actually was talking about a special issue at MIS Quarterly, managing artificial intelligence, and we had the amazing Nick Berenti talk about it. We also had different sessions and seminars about different activities in privacy, cybersecurity, and also about Saudi women in information systems. And also, we had a lot of seminars at that time. We had more than 20 seminars about different topics that were, basically done monthly. Now, in July 2022, the Saudi Information Systems community was recognized as one of the chapters of the Association for Information Systems. And for us, for all of us in Saudi Arabia, this is a big milestone for the discipline of information systems. In the past, we had no place to gather all of the academics and the professionals in information systems, but now we have a roof, we have a house for all of us where we can gather, share information, and benefit from the experience of all of each other.
Okay, about our achievements since 2022 until 2024. Conferences organization? Nazim?
Yep. So we decided that part of our, goals and objectives is that, we participate in organizing different conferences. We started with the MENA CIS conference in 2022 that took place here at KFUPM. And after that, we also participated with having a special track in information systems with the IEEE conference, ICCIT in Tabuk in 2023. And after that, we have the Saudi Conference on Information Systems, which is the very first conference in information systems here in Saudi Arabia. So this is a testimony of the importance and the great work that everyone in our community has done in order to reach such kind of important milestone in our journey.
Okay, about participation in international conferences.
Yep. So also, in addition to having or participating in organizing conferences, actually we went and participated in different social events for the major conferences in the information system discipline. Like, for example, after our official establishment as a chapter of the Association for Information Systems, part of our community went to AMSIS 2022, and they participated in the different social events. And after that, also we participated in the biggest conference in information systems, the ICIS in Denmark. Tawfiq and I represented the association. And after that, we also went to the ICIS 2023 in Hyderabad, India. And that was an amazing conference that we participated in. Thank you to Professor Sarkar and their amazing team for organizing such an amazing conference last year. And also in 2024, our colleagues Samahir and May Benton participated in the AMSIS 2024 conference to also represent the Saudi IS community in those big IS conferences.
Yeah, we also participated in the ACM, the Special Interest Group, focused on the MIS on 2023, on a panel titled Her Story, Challenges, Success Factors, and Lessons Learned as an Information Systems Academic in the MENA region, with me and Iman Al-Yami and Ghadir Al-Said. Okay, about the virtual events. We have a lot of virtual events, and that is the seminars and webinars. As we can see here, we invited professionals, scholars in the IS to give a talk, or this a webinar and seminars, and it's on a monthly basis. And also we held 2 webinars for the Saudi women. The first one was on 2023, which is about the women empowerment. And the other one is about insights from our Saudi female scholars about the data and the AI. Okay, about the space on the X, or which is known as Twitter. We have our own product, which is this space. We called a Tech Hour, or Sa'a Taqaniyya. This hour, we invited some experts and professionals to talk about some the fields, the specific fields in the IS, like the AI and ethics, the social engineering, and so on.
All right. In addition to organizing conferences and also participating in different international conferences, we believe in collaboration. We believe in joining efforts from different organizations and different societies. And we did that actually with the IRC for Finance and Digital Economy here at KFPM, where whenever we have a seminar that is related to information systems, we decided to join forces and do these seminars together and bring the people of both communities together, because we believe in sharing knowledge and sharing benefits with everyone.
So we have it with the IRC.
All right.
And Bosola, the data camp.
Yes, and basically, if you go back, Mona. So the idea of this collaboration was basically now is like, you know, we have different stakeholders that we would like to cater to. We have the academics, we have the practitioners, and also we have the students. So in believing in the future generation and the future leaders of Saudi Arabia and also the region, we decided also to join forces with other organizations, like, for example, Bosola, to give advice, to give mentorship, and to participate in giving talks to those future leaders here in Saudi Arabia. And Bosola organized what is known as a data camp, where students from different universities can take online courses and at the same time listen to speakers who are specialized in different information systems and data related area to give them more understanding and knowledge and interact with those, both practitioners and academics, so that they build, you know, the knowledge for the future of Saudi Arabia.
About the programs and initiatives?
Yeah, so this one is actually something dear to my heart. It's a dear to my heart initiative. So, I mean, for those who studied abroad, like in the United States, we used to have these PhD seminars, right? Where the university or the program bring speakers from different universities or even different countries to come and talk about their research areas of interest and share their knowledge and understanding with the students. When it comes to here in Saudi Arabia, we do not have a lot of PhD programs. And in fact, the first PhD program in MIS started at King Saud University. So we have a small number of intake for PhD students here in Saudi Arabia. And we have a lot of scholars who are outside the country. So by leveraging our networks and our communications with people from different universities and different institutions, we decided to have this program that we call the Elite Series program, where we bring esteemed speakers in different areas and come and talk to those PhD students who are pursuing their PhD studies here in Saudi Arabia to open their eyes about the different areas under information systems that they can pursue and what are the opportunities and the challenges actually that they can face when pursuing that and how to craft their dissertations and research. So we had Carolina Salj, we have Maha Sheikh, and we have Bogdan who came to the program. We started in a small scale to test the idea. It was a success for us. We had around 30 participants in this Elite Series program. We are planning to continue the same program in the future in 2024 and also in 2025. Also, another product that we decided to have so that we can also expand our sharing of knowledge to other people, we have made a podcast, and that was because of the efforts of May Benton, Mona Yami, so my better is in the IT. So Mona Yami, Amatullah Suleiman, Amr Al-Jarallah, and with the collaboration of Faragh, which is a podcasting company, where we had our podcast for 9 episodes, and we talked about different topics that are related to technology. And the name is Digital Dimensions, because we believe that the impact of the information technologies or the digital technologies is not only in a small scale. It has impact on societies, politics, culture, individuals, and organizations, and even history. And we believe in sharing that by talking with each other, with my co-hosts, and also hosting amazing speakers like, for example, Amir and Tawfiq in our podcast. All right, so again, we believe in expanding collaboration. We believe in going to other societies and communities to reach with our hands and talk to them and collaborate and join forces. And one of the things that we did, actually, we went to Al-Kuwait, and specifically to Kuwait University. We were actually invited by the Kuwait University, specifically invited by Dr. Muhammad Al-Marzouk, Abdullah Al-Huli, and Salman Al-Jazzaf to come and visit the Kuwait University and also the beautiful country of Kuwait, and to talk more about the Saudi Association and the potential of having the Kuwaiti Information System Society. They are already amazing people, but having a formal chapter or an association, I think it's really an important next step to have in the near future. Also, we met with the Qatari chapter, represented by Noui, the president, and also Shadi. They came all the way from Qatar to the IEEE conference in Tabuk. Just to talk about the future collaboration opportunities that we can have with them. It was an amazing meeting with all of them. The region is full with amazing talent, scholars, and potential. And by having such kind of collaborations, we believe that the region will be, dominating the scene in the near future. All right, okay. And now, before we continue with the rest of the program, we would like to, show appreciation and recognition for those directors and volunteers in our association. So
before that, we have this outstanding chapter.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Award.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, my apologies for that. Oh yeah. So
after 1 year, only 1 year.
Exactly. So after 1 year of the establishment of the association, and after these many efforts and achievements, we were recognized by the Association for Information Systems as one of the outstanding chapters of the association back in 2023. And this is because of the efforts of the volunteers that we have and the directors that we have in our information systems community here in Saudi Arabia.
Okay, when we're talking about numbers, we have on our social media platforms, the LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, 5,000 followers, and we have around 700,000 views. with almost 40,000 interactions. And the total posts that we post on the social media is around 450 posts.
And now is the time for the appreciation. I just switched the slides. My apologies for that. But really, when you want to build a community, it's not a one-person job.
Yes,
it takes a whole village to build a community, as they say. And with that, we really would like to appreciate our directors and volunteers who were involved with us since 2016, and now formally with the current leadership of the Saudi Association for Information Systems. So we're going to call your names. Once you hear your name, please come to the stage to receive your certification. I would like to invite Amatullah Suleiman and Iman Al-Yami to help us with calling the names and distributing the certificates. If you can open the mics on the podium.
Assalamu alaikum.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you.
طيب راح نبدأ أولاً بالشهادة الأولى لدكتور إيمان اليامي كسكرتارية تنفيذية للمنظمة السعودية لنظم المعلومات as a chief admin officer.
That needs no translation. They're appreciating it.
Let's take a picture in the middle.
This side, in this side.
لدينا كذلك الدكتور توفيق العاشور كرئيس للجنة لجنة النشر العلمي.
Director for the Publication Committee.
الأعضاء المتطوعين في اللجنة دكتورة عواطف العتيبي كعضوة في لجنة النشر العلمي.
مازن حطي
The Publication Committee.
دكتورة مشاعل المقبل.
أهلا يعطيك العافية.
يعطيك العافية، شكرا جزيلا.
Dr. Masha'al Al-Muqbil, the member of the Publication Committee.
يعطيك العافية. شكرا.
دكتور حياك الله.
دكتور رائد الحربي كعضو في لجنة النشر العلمي.
Also a member for the Publication Committee.
You have to raise your voice.
يعطيك العافية دكتور.
دكتورة رشا الأحمد كعضوة في لجنة النشر العلمي أيضاً.
Next.
لدينا كذلك اللجنة الثانية لجنة البرامج والفعاليات بقيادة دكتور موسى البشراوي.
Translation.
Dr. Musa is the Director of Program and Events Committee.
يعطيك العافية.
دكتور زينب الشبيب كمساعد لرئيس لجنة البرامج والفعاليات.
Vice Director of Programs and Events Committee.
يعطيك العافية.
يعطيك العافية زينب، شكرا.
دكتورة شيماء أبو الناس أيضاً كعضوة في لجنة البرامج والفعاليات.
Also a member of Programs and Events Committee.
شكرا. تفضلي.
دكتور منير الشيخ كعضو في لجنة البرامج والفعاليات.
Also a member for the Program and Events Committee.
Next. Next.
All right.
أيضا من ضمن اللجان دكتور عامر الجار الله رئيس للجنة التعليم.
Director of the Education Committee.
يعطيك العافية.
يعطيكم العافية. شكرا.
دكتورة أمل الخلاوي كعضوة في لجنة التعليم.
Member of Education Committee.
يعطيك العافية. تفضلي.
يعطيك العافية.
دكتور محمد الحريصي كرئيس للجنة التدريب والتطوير.
So Dr. Mohammed, he's the Director of Training and Development Committee, but he's not with us today.
دكتورة أبرار الجحدلي كعضوة في لجنة التطوير والتدريب.
Member of Training and Development Committee. دكتورة أبرار.
Think next.
Next.
And آخر لجنة فعالة معنا، كل اللجان فعالة طبعا ولا قصور في الباقين. دكتور فادي المزيد كرئيس للجنة العلاقات العامة.
Dr. Fadi is the Director of Public Relations Committee, but he is not with us today.
دكتورة نوال المريسل كعضوة في لجنة العلاقات العامة.
PR star, superstar, a member of Public Relations Committee.
كده تعرف تفضل. شكرا.
And last but not least, أخيرا وليس آخرا، عندنا أمة الله سليمان نائبة رئيس لجنة العلاقات العامة، الله يعطيها العافية. So we have أمة الله سليمان, the Vice Director of Public Relations Committee.
شكرا.
Thank you. All right, next on our agenda, we also believe in recognizing those who participated in the other collaborations that we made over the years. And to present the awards for the Bosola Data Camp initiative, I would like to invite Mr. Aqil Ramizan to the stage to talk more about this initiative and then present the certifications for the participants in the program.
We have 3 winners, right? We have 3 winners.
Yes.
In Bosola. Yeah.
Gonna be here. أبو بيتكلم. تبغى مايك ولا؟ مريم أوكي. We can be here.
Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. After years of experience with student clubs, with some profit organization, with several voluntary work experience, me and Abdullah Halwani, the founder of Bosola, we have some discussion that there is a gap between academia and the private sector. At that time, I blamed the academia for this gap, and Abdullah blamed the private sector. So we think why we don't take this initiative and tackle this issue and challenge. We established Bosola, which is a Saudi student initiative that focusing on 3 areas. Firstly, we try to increase the awareness of students that your high GPA is not enough. You need to have some soft and hard skills. You need to have some extracurriculum activities. Secondly, we search and share some leadership and development programs from SABIC, Aramco, and MISC, for examples. And the third point, which is the most important point for me, that we make our own development programs. With several strategic partnerships, we have some HR event, mentorship program for business students, and the most interesting one for me, which is Bosola Data Camp. We provide a sponsorship for over 55 students in critical area in our economy, in data analytics, AI, and machine learning. All this sponsorship and students have tackled these areas and courses. We have completed more than 1,000 learning opportunity and hours and completing their project. Of course, our esteemed Saudi Association for Information System had helped us by bringing some experts from academic, from industry to share their thought on critical talk and aspects. And I believe that this great effort needs to have a ceremony. So here, today, we are to celebrate the complete of our program and congratulate our best 7 students on this activity.
Okay, so first, for successfully completing the Bosola Data Camp program, specifically the data analyst with Python, we have Abdullah Al-Harbi.
No, wait.
Next, we have Abdurrahman Al-Duhaylan. Abdurrahman. Please join me in welcoming Abdurrahman. Next, we have Abdul Mahsen Al-Tamimi. Abdul Mahsen.
يعطيك العافية عبد الرحمن. هذا الصف مبروك.
And we have Raneem Al-Shahrani. Raneem. Okay. Raneem. So please welcome Raneem with us. Next we have Hamza Shahbar. Hamza.
سلامتك العافية تفضل. عقل.
Next we have Dana Doseri. Dana.
I think it's better I come to that side. I think it's better to come.
And finally we have Majd Al-Thibeti. Majd. And this concludes Bosola Award.
شكرا.
يعطيك العافية عقل. شكرا. And by the way, Agil is my current student, so I'm really proud of Agil. And I'm happy to have such an amazing student, having such an amazing initiatives for his and her colleagues. So thank you so much, Agil, and for an amazing effort, and also Abdullah Halawani. We're going to now switch the topic to talk about the next leadership that will carry the torch for the Saudi IS community and continue the achievements that we will have in the future. With that, I would like to invite Iman Al-Yami to talk more about the elections and the voting procedure for those who are interested in becoming the next leaders of the IS community, Saudi Information Systems community. Please pay attention to this important information.
Oh, hello. Good evening, another time. So most of you are wondering, or I had a lot of questions about how to join you and how to become a member. So in this case, we decided to show you how to become an official member at the AIS and also how to nominate yourself and vote for any position that we have at the association. So some important information here includes how to become an officer, what constitutes an officer. So as the officer, we have 5 positions. As the committee, as the Saudi AIS board, according to our bylaws, which is agreed upon by the by AIS, we have the president, vice president, directors of the committees, and treasurer and secretary. So no person may hold multiple positions at the same time, and the person who's holding one of those positions must be a member and in good standing with AIS, must have the AIS membership, and all officers are elected by the Saudi AIS members in the annual election, which actually will come in December this year. So the period of each office is 2 years, and no re-election for more than 2 consecutive periods, that means for 4 years, for the same position. However, extensions beyond 2 executive periods should be supported by the president and be approved by the majority of membership at our annual general meeting. So nomination, how to nominate yourself or nominate someone else, that as it appears in Article 5 in Section 2 of our bylaws, nominations and election committee chaired by the VP here. So the VP form an election committee and nominate at least one, this committee nominate at least one candidate for each officer position, and nominations may also be made by any member eligible to vote. So the next question is, who is eligible to vote? So each member in good standing with Saudi AIS shall be entitled to 1 vote on business pertaining to all Saudi AIS matters, and decision shall be by a majority of those participating and eligible to vote. And on matters of general business, voting might be conducted by any means, including emails or during Zoom meetings. So in regard to the election officers, voting must be conducting through AIS system or platform. That's an official way to do it, and I will show you how we will do it. Regarding both election of officers and matters of general business, all members who are eligible to vote have both absentee and proxy voting rights. That means if you can't vote, you can't cast your vote by email or any other means, and proxy voting right, that you delegate that right to another person to vote instead of you. So elections, the actual elections. So the annual election of the Saudi AIS officers will be held during December in the 2nd year of the period. So we are actually approaching the 2nd year of our period. So we're holding our elections in next month, inshallah. So each voting member shall be entitled to 1 vote again, and voting shall be conducted through online AIS platform. So we opted actually for the official way to do our elections, and in this time, me as the secretary, I will send a request to AIS staff to set up an online ballot, which we indicate the duration, positions, and link to candidate bios on the SaudiCIS chapter page. So when you nominate yourself or nominate someone else, please make sure that you follow us on this AIS website. I can show you how to join our chapter and where actually we can find your name, your membership, and your bios. Send the voting link. That's the AIS that will do this for us. They send the voting link to the community members and send an anonymized report after the election duration ends they send an anonymized report to the community's point of contact, which is me or Mazen or Muna. So after that, the nominee, after the election period, ends the nominee receiving the most votes cast as per the AIS report of the election results should fill each position, and the annual elections and results also will be by the end of December. So at the starting of the new year, January 1st, the elected board will resume office. Finally, this is the barcode. Please fill this form if you want to join us, if you want to become a member, and nominate yourself or anyone you know. Nominate to each, you nominate them to fill any one of the 5 positions that we have. Please use this form and tell us briefly about yourself. So when we start our elections, we can find nominees. And that concludes the election slides. Thank you very much.
Is it working? Test? Yes.
Yes,
No.
yes.
So thank you so much, Iban, for the information regarding the voting in the election. Now, next year we're going to have 2 major conferences coming to the region, and we would like to give, our SaudiCIS community more knowledge, more information about these conferences, so that they can participate in the conferences by papers, by attending the different events, or even networking in these major conferences. We will play a short clip for PASIS 2025, given to us by the president of the AIS Malaysia chapter. So if you can play the clip for the PASIS 2025 in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. All right. The next conference that is coming to the region, specifically in the Arab region, is the SaudiCIS 2025 that will be held in Amman, Jordan. And to talk more about the conference, all the way from Europe, we have Dr. Ahmed Ghazawana, who is a conference co-chair, who will talk more about the conference and how we can participate in the conference. So please, Dr. Ahmed, join us on the stage.
First of all, thank you for inviting me to come today. My name is Ahmed Ghazawane. I'm SaudiCIS 2025 Conference Chair. After 2 years working hard to bring one of the most interesting AIS conferences to the region, we were able to get it in 2025. It will be held in Amman between 12 to 18 of June 2025 next year. It will be hosted by Amman Al Ahliya University, and it will be co-organized by Christiania University from Norway and Halmstad University from Sweden. I would like to invite each and every one of you to join us in that conference. We have two great speakers, the Crown Prince of Jordan, and we have the AI Minister from UAE, His Excellency Omar Al-Ulama, joining us to discuss AI in the Arab region. We have 26 exciting tracks, more than 79 track chairs, and more than 450 AEs. Unfortunately, you cannot submit an article because 2 days ago was the deadline, and we have received 744 submissions. But still, you can submit a workshop or join our panels. For all Saudi doctoral students, you have the opportunity to join the doctoral consortium in the Dead Sea. And if you don't have funding, come talk to me. We might be able to fund you to join us in the Dead Sea in Jordan next year. We have great attractions, and we have great guest speakers in the Jordan. We have great food. And most importantly, we would like you to join because we want to show the IS community and AIS that our IS academics from the region are there and here, and they are thriving. Thank you so much again, and welcome to Jordan next year. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ahmed. So prestigious conferences is coming to the region, and this is a great opportunity for all of us to attend these conferences and be part of the global information systems community scene. Now, let's have some fun, since this is like, the late hours of the day and all of us are tired. So we're gonna have a simple, competition or a quiz for you. And we would like, to all of you to participate in this competition, and there are gift cards to be given to the best 3 who answer these questions. To help me do the competition, I would like to invite Tawfiq Al-Ashour to the stage to help us in asking the questions and motivating the people to participate.
Thank you, Mazen. I need a mic.
The mic is there.
Is there a mic? Do you want a mic or you want to sit at the podium?
I want a mic.
All right, can we have a mic, please?
Energy is back, please. All right, thank you. Well, I can see that everyone has been focusing on these few presentations, and I will only take 3-4 minutes out of your time, so no worries here. So we have a quick game, Kahoot. Most of you are familiar with that. We have a few questions. So if you've been paying attention, you might leave tonight with a gift card. Are you ready? Are you ready? Woo! Yes. So put your first and last name, please. And we're gonna start in 10-15 seconds. Technology, please, are you ready? We have 21, 22, 23, one more. 25. People are back. It is really hard to see. Yes. Please, yes, you can. Uno, dos, tres, please start. First question. SaudiCIS. Question number 1. Who is the president of the SaudiCIS? Dr. Muna Al-Yami, Dr. Iman Al-Yami, Dr. Mazen Shawush, or Dr. Amr Al-Jarallah? There is only one correct answer. Please. Well, you have to use your phone. Sorry, I did not mention that for those who are not familiar with Kahoot. I think you may not be able to join anymore, but we can give him a gift card, right? He was right. All right, we got most people answering that question correct. Next, please. We have Rawan. Well, it's only one question. Next. Second question, when did the SaudiCIS first get started? 2015, 16, 17, or 18? Wow. All right, next. Rawan is still number one. Where is Rawan? There she is. Let's compete. Next question. What platform did the SaudiCIS initially use to communicate as a group? WhatsApp, Skype, Messenger, or Facebook? Pretty easy, right? Supra, why are you not participating? Five seconds, 4, 3, 2, 1. I know some puedo hablar un poquito de español. Rawan al-Gahtani jumped to the top of the list. Next question. On which year were the SaudiCIS's YouTube and Twitter accounts created? 2020, 2021, 22, or 2023? Very easy. I don't see your name on the top of that list. We have 10 seconds to go. All right. Rawan, are you coming back to the top of the list? All right, we got 18 correct answers, 12 incorrect, and 2 also, so 14 incorrect. Tawfiq is back to the game. All right, next question. We got a couple more questions, I believe. How many committees are there in the SaudiCIS? That is a tricky one. It is 5, 6, 7, or 1. Apparently, the sequence of these answers is random. We're trying to, make the test more difficult. All right, we only got 10 people who got a correct answer. Next question, and that's the 5th. We got 3 more questions to go. Rawan is back to the top, number 1. What committee is Dr. Musa a member of within the SaudiCIS? The first 3 will receive a big prize. So we got Publication Committee, Education Committee, Program and Event Committee, or PR Committee. Most people got this question correct. Difficulty level is medium. So we're good. Next question, please. Rawan is the best. What committee is Amatullah a member of within the SaudiCIS? I think it was pretty recent. So if you know what the recency effect, see if you are prone to that effect in a positive way in this case. Publication Committee, Education Committee, PR Committee, or Program and Event Committee. 3, 2, 1. Most people got that right. I told you, they've been paying attention, even though they are so tired. Thank you all so much. Now we got one more question. On what date was the Saudi AIS officially recognized as a chapter of the main AIS organization? Was that May 4th on 2022, July 6th, 2022, August 3rd, 2022, or November 19, 2024? Where I want to see Tawfiq on to the top of that list. 3 seconds, 2 and 1. Perfect. Let's see who are the winners of our amazing game. KFUPM go. Third, C. Well, number 1, Rawan B. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your effort and time and staying until this hour. We are pretty sure you are so exhausted, but now you can go and receive first. We gotta give the prizes, right? So we would like KFUPM go. Who's KFUPM go? That is, yes?
يستاهل
Please.
يستاهل
يستاهل طبعا.
يستاهل.
الله يعطيك العافية. شرفنا. الاسم الكريم؟
سلطان رشيدي.
سلطان رشيدي، أهلا وسهلا.
يعطيك العافية سلطان، تستاهل. تفضل، هذه جائزة بسيطة. It's a gift card for Apple Store.
ألف ألف مبروك. That's how we say congratulations. مبروك.
توفيق, the second one.
Second, we have someone with the name C. C, Corina, please.
Woo!
Congratulations. Corina likes to, well, she loves privacy, so she's trying to say anonymous in this case.
We're going to give you an option. Either a Netflix gift card or an App Store gift card. Which one do you prefer? The Netflix gift card or the App Store gift card? Which one do you prefer? The App Store. Here you go.
For a round of applause, please.
Let's mix it together. Right answer.
Now, Rawan, please. Give a round, one final round of applause to Rawan. ألف مبروك.
يلا من حظك النتفليكس.
One final word from the leader of our Saudi AIS.
Thank you so much, Tawfiq. Thank you so much for this, effort that you have with us. It's not only the competition that you are also doing. You are doing an amazing work in this conference as a program co-chair and also as one of the founders of the Saudi Association for Information Systems. So please give a round of applause for Dr. Tawfiq Al-Ashur. All right, before we conclude, Muna, do you have any final thoughts or remarks that you would share with our guests in the conference?
No, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. And I want to leave you with a simple thought. Dreams start small. Tawfiq, Amr, Musa, Muna, Iman, we all had small dreams that we want to gather and build a community. And we gathered, we stayed for many years, using WhatsApp as the way or the mean to communicate with each other. After establishing the Saudi Association for Information Systems formally, we had bigger dreams to actually start the very first conference in information systems. And today, the dream came true, and all of you are part of our big dream that is now a reality. Thank you so much for coming, and to the next achievements for the Saudi Association for the Information Systems. Thank you so much. You have a lovely night.
Thank you.